The following program may contain coarse language, violence, nudity, mature subject matter, or scenes which may not be suitable for all viewers. Viewer discretion is advised.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome back, everyone. I must tell you that the last guest still has me scratching my head wondering what the hell they were talking about. You ever have one of those days? Well, I'm a pretty lucky guy because right now I'm bringing on a guest that we've had on many times before. Very interesting, very credible. He knows what he's talking about. And we're going to be talking about ghost hauntings, things that go bump in the night. I'm not talking about your husband or your boyfriend or your wife when they come home from the bar. Dale Kaczmarek is my guest this hour, and he is the president of Ghost Research, right, Dale?
Ghost Research Society. Mm-hmm.
Welcome back to the X Zone. Always great seeing you and speaking with you. How have you been?
I've been good. I've been very busy, starting up my spring investigative season here, I guess. But as you know, Chicago, I don't know how it is in Canada, but I know Chicago, their winter wants to hang on forever.
Oh, I know. It's horrible. And according to weather scientists, here in the Ontario region where we live in the Niagara region, it has been the gloomiest winter on record.
I think Chicago probably be a close second. I mean, we seem to have like 6 months of winter and a couple of months of summer. We don't have no spring or fall here, really.
Yeah, same here. When is your busiest season? I would imagine that Halloween in that part of the fall is busy for you, but are you busy all year round?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. We do things, investigations, and research year round. We start breaking out the equipment to do outdoor investigations. Hopefully, in April, and we run through October or November, whenever the season begins to get bad again. And even during the off season, we try to do internal investigations where we're going into private home businesses, places like that, when we don't have to go out in the harsh weather.
The type of investigation that you do, does it vary according to the time of year as well as the weather itself?
It can. In some cases, for instance, if give you an example, we just got back from a 5-day trip to northern Alabama to do investigations out there into a spook light, a ghost light, which is also one of my passions. I wrote a book on it called Illuminating the Darkness, The Mystery of Spook Lights. And sometimes those things are only seen, according to the eyewitnesses down there, during certain times of the year. For instance, even though it was 70, 80 degrees down there, which was a respite from the Chicago weather up here, I mean, it was a nice vacation. It seemed like some of those, I only saw really one or two that I could maybe claim might be paranormal. And it seemed to have more of those show up as we get closer to the summer. So kind of tailoring our investigations pretty much to when the phenomenon is often seen by people.
You mentioned one of the books you've written. How many books have you written all told, Dale?
I've written 6 books as of right now. I hope to be able to write a few more in the upcoming years. And
are they available on Amazon.com?
They're at Amazon.com. They're also directly through my website as well. So people can go either way.
And that's Ghost Research, ghostresearch.org. Oh, we got to get a plug-in for your books, my friend.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate it.
How did you get started in investigating the paranormal for the listeners and viewers who haven't had the opportunity of meeting you before?
Well, I think, again, I want to blame this spooky hobby of mine on my parents. Because, they started telling me ghost stories when I was quite young. I mean, 5, 6, 7 years old. My dad actually was sort of the ghost hunter of the family, so to speak. My mother, she enjoyed doing that, but it was during my parents, when they were still dating, just prior to World War II. My dad was in the Merchant Marines, and he used to drive past the cemetery a lot, a rather large Polish Catholic cemetery in our area called Resurrection Cemetery, to look for the so-called hitchhiking ghost story that's been seen since the latter 1930s. And this was often after a date, taking my mom out, or mom-to-be, out on a date, a movie, a show, a theater. And then my mom always figured out that on Saturday night, this is what the modus operandi would be, taking her past this creepy cemetery in the middle of the night looking for the ghost. My mom was not at all happy with it. She was would often scream at my dad and say, take me home. I don't want to see the ghost. And they never saw the ghost, but it was these kind of stories that I had told to me as a youngster. In fact, that was the very first ghost story I was ever told, of this hitchhiking ghost story.
As a paranormal investigator, have you ever investigated any ghost hitchhiker stories?
Oh, absolutely. Quite a few. The whole idea basically of a hitchhiking ghost story is a staple of American folklore. I mean, you can find it in, I think you pronounce it John Brunfeld, I believe is his name. He was a very talented author that wrote about urban legends and so forth. And almost every city has some sort of hitchhiking ghost, I would think. I mean, I've been across the country. I've been in various states, and I always seem to come across something that some seem to be more credible than others, because there seems to be more, perhaps, documentation that there was something that took place, some traffic accident or some hit and run or something like that that precipitated the ghost story, where others tend to be a bit more like urban legends or folk tales.
Ghost trains. Somebody was talking at lunch today about ghost trains, and they knew you were coming on the show. In fact, it's one of our camera operators here. And he wanted me to ask you if you have had any experience investigating ghost trains, and to the best of your knowledge, what is a ghost train?
Well, I have actually investigated several. In fact, probably one of the most famous is Lincoln's funeral train that has been seen when he was assassinated, obviously in Washington, D.C., and then as he made the trek to Springfield, back to Illinois, which was his home, people along the way would stop and, in real life, would stop and pay their respects.
Yes.
And of course, since that time, and since the decades has passed, there's been many reports of his funeral train being seen along train tracks, even though some of the train tracks are not even there anymore. In fact, in Irvington, Indiana, we were able to see where the funeral train went through. The tracks are no longer there, but people still see that train pulling up in Irvington, Indiana. I've investigated other places where trains have been seen, and in some cases, ghost lights associated with trains. It might have been perhaps the train light on the front of the train. Right. People will see that train, apparently a train coming towards them. They hear no sound. The crossing guards don't come down, alerting them that there's a train coming, and all of a sudden they'll get up on the tracks. They'll look down the tracks, and there's no longer a train there. Inanimate objects, and this is what people have often asked me, is how can an inanimate object come back, to be a ghost? It's like a ghost car. People have seen ghost houses and things like that. Nature. I think it's not so much that it's an inanimate object coming back to life, which it obviously can't. I think it's more or less some traumatic incident that has taken place back in time, and what you're seeing is kind of residual replay of that event. Not only ghost trains, but ghost cars and things of that nature have been reported in Chicago and across the country. And I've investigated a lot of these. They're very fascinating, and it's just something that many people don't realize why these things show up.
Well, I've got a theory because of the amount of time I've been in broadcasting way back when. We used to have to record everything on reel-to-reel tapes and keep them for so many days for the CRTC and the FCC. Once that that reel had, was long enough, and that, we held it as we had to. We had bulk erasers, demagnetizers.
Mm-hmm.
And what would happen? Not everything would be erased. And what we would get would be like ghost sounds on the new tracks that we would record on. And I was just wondering, is it possible that this is what we're seeing because of the electromagnetic field around the Earth? Is that certain things and everything is recorded, and that for one reason or another, some aren't erased, like on the bulk eraser, like a space-time fracture, so to speak. Is this a possible theory?
Absolutely. They call this sometimes residual, but
right.
another way that people have thought of this is a stone tape theory, which is basically something has been recorded.
Yeah.
If you're recording something that had an energy at one time, and again, if you go back to Einstein, he says that energy can't be created nor destroyed.
Right.
So there has been some sort of tragedy or trauma or something, or in some cases, just you're recording somebody. Where does that energy go? Why isn't it completely gone? Well, it doesn't completely go according to theories, science. It's always there. It's not always strong enough that perhaps me or you or others might be able to encounter that. But in many cases that I've investigated, in fact, a lot of the cases that we've investigated seem to be that residual, where there's not any real intelligence associated with it. It's just something, the best way I've described it is something that has embedded itself in the fabric of time and space. And for some reason, these things can replay itself to people at certain times of the year, sometimes an anniversary of a death, a birth, a tragedy, or something of that nature, or very, very random. One really good example, very quickly, is the Flight 191 in Chicago that crashed in May 25th, 1979. All 282 passengers died. And we have been out to that location on the anniversary of that crash for several years in a row, and have gotten very, very good EVPs, and in some cases what we call real-time EVPs, where we're actually able to hear the voices and the responses of the questions just asked.
Fascinating. Dale Kaczmarek is our very special guest this hour. His website is ghostresearch.org, and Dale and I will be back after this break as we continue here in the X Zone with yours truly, Rob McConnell, from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada.
Question: what is the name of the unique blend of coffee you get that has been formulated by a neurologist, a neurobiologist, and a pharmaceutical chemist? Answer: you get Beautiful Mind Coffee, a unique coffee blend that tastes great and has herbal ingredients that your brain will love, and it is not just coffee, it's brainalicious. Dr. Rathbone, Dr. Jang, and Dr. Winslow, the scientific team that created Beautiful Mind Coffee, decided to collaborate on a coffee focusing on brain health. As for those herbal ingredients found in Beautiful Mind Coffee, Dr. Rathbone, Dr. Jang, and Dr. Winslow, utilizing their combined extensive scientific research background, worked with many natural and herbal products until the exact formulation that is found in Beautiful Mind Coffee was created. With a unique scientific formula not found in any other coffee being sold or served, Beautiful Mind Coffee is the only coffee blend that contains 3 herbal ingredients found to aid in boosting your daily mental clarity and focus. Every cup of Beautiful Mind Coffee contains scientifically formulated amounts of maca root powder, green tea extract, and American ginseng, all supporting good brain health. Taking care of your brain's health now can help delay or prevent the onset of cognitive dysfunction, including dementia, Alzheimer's, and more general memory loss as you get older, just by enjoying the delicious flavor of our roasted coffee and herbal ingredients found exclusively in Beautiful Mind Coffee. Did you know that cognitive dysfunction also refers to deficits in attention, verbal and nonverbal learning, short-term and working memory, visual and auditory processing, problem-solving, processing speed, and motor functioning? For more on Beautiful Mind Coffee, the 3 scientists who formulated Beautiful Mind Coffee, and more details on the 3 unique herbal ingredients in Beautiful Mind Coffee, visit www.beautifulmindcoffee.ca. Beautiful Mind Coffee is now available online at amazon.ca and amazon.com. To order Beautiful Mind Coffee, visit www.beautifulmindcoffee.ca today.
And I would like to let everyone know that Beautiful Mind Coffee is available at Amazon.com and Amazon.ca. And if you'd like to find a local retailer near you, visit their website at www.beautifulmindcoffee.ca. Dale Kaczmarek is our special guest, www.ghostresearch.org. We were talking about residual hauntings, I guess they could be called, Dale. I've been told that a lot of the castle hauntings, or I should say that there are those castle hauntings that happen at the same time of a time of a year, a day, a time. How does this happen?
Well, again, it depends on the trauma, the energy exerted, the energy expelled at one of these incidents. I'll be traveling to England in the latter part of May and the first 2 weeks of June. And one of the places where I'm going to be investigating or hope to investigate would be the Tower of London.
Oh, yeah.
There's reports of one of King Henry VIII's wives that was going to be beheaded. And, of course, that goes back to the 1600s. And her ghost is sometimes still to this day running and seen screaming down the hallway trying to go towards King Henry's bedchambers to beg for her life, and people have still seen that to this very day. There are a lot of other locations that I've investigated that again have that sort of emotion, that sort of energy, and I think that has a lot to do with whether it's seen. Now, again, as I said before, this can be for a anniversary, it could be a birth or death date, or it could be totally random. When we try to investigate locations that have had some sort of trauma or accident or emotional outburst of energy, is the way I like to put it, we try to get there during or before the anniversary date of something. And in some cases, we do get a better result than just going on a random day. Now, again, if there are spirits there, the idea that if there is a lingering energy that cannot be destroyed, but it can just shift forms and change forms, maybe that energy is there all the time, and people just don't realize that. They don't go out there, every 365 days a year. They just go randomly, and they'll pick up something. We've had a lot of success sometimes going to an anniversary date.
Does the weather have an effect on the investigation itself? For example, is there more activity during a thunderstorm than there would be on a clear night, or it really doesn't matter?
Again, we're talking about energy, and a lot of times when there are storms coming in, like I was talking before the show, we had a storm that came through here.
Yeah, right.
Pretty vicious that didn't do any damage to my area, which was good. But the added electricity in the air those free-flowing ions, that energy created by thunderstorms and by lightning, can actually, I believe, enhance a phenomena, because if there is, again, something there in the form of a surviving personality, they sometimes will draw on some energies to manifest or to talk. That's why in some cases people feel somewhat drained when they go into a haunted house or something. They're doing investigations. Maybe the spirits are draining our energy. That's why equipment and batteries and tape recorders and so forth, because they're draining that. So I think there is a lot to do with meteorological effects that can cause a phenomenon to be intensified. We're also looking at the possibility of maybe lunar implications, the full moon, the new moon, and so forth, because the whole idea for the term lunacy comes from the term lunar, moon, and so forth. And police officers have often said that they get a lot more violent crimes, carjackings, and so forth during the time of the full moon. So if it can affect us physically in the physical body, it may be able to affect somebody that has left their body.
Well, look what the moon does to the tides.
Absolutely.
And of course, our body is mainly composed of water, so it would only make sense that the way that the moon affects the tides would certainly affect us humans as well. Somebody calls you up and they say, Dale, heard you on the X Zone the other night, saw you on X Zone TV, on Simul TV. I have a problem. I would like you and your team to come and investigate what I consider to be a haunting. How would you conduct an investigation like that?
Well, first of all, what I would do is interview them over the phone and try to get all the relevant information about, just general information, and have them tell their story to me and their encounters in their own words before I ask any questions. Because I've discovered throughout the many years I've been doing this is if you ask too many leading questions, you lead somebody down a trail.
Right.
You should just let them tell the story in their own words, which is what I like to do. So I'll do that first, and then later on we have about a 10-page questionnaire that we can go through that also asks about the type of home. Is it on running water nearby? Is it made of limestone? Other things like that that may have a bearing on the case. We would then set up a time to go over to conduct an investigation with a small team, depending on the size of the home. I mean, I've done investigations in mobile homes. I've done investigations in 256,000 square foot buildings.
Wow.
So we would bring in a team that's would be useful in the size of the home that we're going into, and they would work in teams of 2. And we do this in 3 phases. Phase 1 is we go through with our equipment, with clipboards and floor plans of the location without telling any of my team what's going on. So I think that's more scientific that way. That this way, people in my team don't have any preconceived notions what's going on. They don't go to the creepy attic or the scary basement. They just go throughout the building, and they will record whatever they pick up with their own bodies, with their equipment, and mark it on there. Then in phase 2, we would then sit down with the client, and before the client says anything, we have our team tell the client what they've experienced. Now, I've already talked to the client, so I know at that point they've told me the whole story. And then we see how that matches up between what the client has experienced and what we have just picked up. In phase 3, we would then set up our cameras at these locations, maybe other locations that maybe our team did not pick up anything at. We would conduct EVPs. We would then try to find out if there was a communication that could be held in some way, find out why this ghost is there, put out some other meters and devices that would pick up anomalous energy from electromagnetic frequency to radiation to totally invisible light, use night shot cameras and things of that nature. And then after all that is compiled, we may or may not have experiences. It really depends. I mean, sometimes we've been to a location that we get nothing at all. Sometimes we get a whole bunch of stuff. We would then go back and review our evidence, the pictures, the video, the audio, and then write a report, meet up with the client again in person, go over what we have experienced, and then see how that client wants to proceed from that point. Because a lot of times when people call us, it's not so much that they want an exorcism or they want something taken out of it. Sometimes they're just curious. They want to know that they're not going kooky, they're not going crazy. They want verification from this. And in some cases, they think they know who it is. It might be Uncle Joe, Uncle Tom, and Bernice or something. And if it's that person, they don't want that person to be expelled. They're fine with that. So we kind of go like that route. And if the client wants to take it a step further, then we can always bring in psychics or mediums that we have worked with in the past to see what other avenues we can explore.
Is there any connection between ghost hauntings and other dimensions?
I believe so. I believe that in many cases, the whole idea of a ghost, again, I believe in some cases it can be a surviving personality. If you talk about the intelligent ghost and not the residual. The residual is kind of a tape loop, but there can be intelligence where we get EVP responses. But in some cases, I believe, and many other investigators have also come up with this idea of portals, of interdimensional doorways, perhaps, where spirits can go back and forth from time to time. And that's why maybe they're not here all the time. Maybe they are, whenever I hate to use this word, but the veil gets kind of thin at certain points, that we can perhaps see and experience more spirits than they may be all around all the time, but their energies may not be sufficiently strong enough for us to capture an EVP, to take a picture, to see them visually, which by the way, visual sighting is by far the least reported phenomenon. It's mostly sounds that people will experience rather than physical manifestations.
When using recorders for EVPs, what do you find to be the best method, the old analog or the new digital recorders?
We've actually used both, but I think right now we've gotten a bit more results with the digital technology than the analog. We have employed cassette tape recorders. We have the old bulky reel-to-reel tape.
Yeah.
We have portable devices we can actually bring in as well, but the sound is very often not up to par, so to speak, as the digital sound would be, and we're able to more easily, import that into a computer. I have software that I can analyze and see in some cases where that voice falls in. Does it fall into an avenue of audible sound, or is it infrasound? Is it ultrasound? Is it beyond or below our hearing capabilities? And most EVPs, as you know, are not heard when they're recorded. They're usually only heard during playback.
Is there any logic behind that?
Yes, there is actually, because even the old analog recorders, but more so the digital technology, actually records a wide variety of sound and sound energy, I guess you would call it, even beyond what we can hear. It encompasses a lot of different frequencies that sometimes we just don't hear.
Right.
And because we don't hear it, the way it's recorded is recorded directly onto the device, bypassing our physical ears to the point that only we can play. If it's strong enough, it can be transposed onto a digital recorder, and then we play that back and hear that sound. Now, if we hear a disembodied voice, which is different, which is an audible sound that you actually hear as you're recording it. Now, those are very exciting, and I've been privy to a lot of those. We heard at least 9 disembodied screams that we heard and recorded at Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum in West Virginia a number of years ago. And this was just bone-chilling. The scream.
I would imagine so, yeah. What was it like the first time you heard a disembodied sound?
it was a little bit shocking. I would say. I mean, I don't get scared. And people have asked me all the time, do you get scared that you run out of building? Well,
Yeah.
no, I mean, that's what I'm there for. You know, if I hear a sound, if I see something, I'm going to run toward it. But I mean, the very first time you hear something like that, it is a little unnerving. I mean, it perhaps takes you by surprise because you don't expect that to happen. Because again, that's something like the visual apparition where you don't often hear or see that much. It's usually something you take a picture of and you see later when you look at the picture or when you do an EVP recording and you hear it during the playback.
Do you find the same thing happens with video recordings?
Oh, absolutely. Because some of the video recorders we still use are taped recordings. I mean, they're using high 8 cassette tapes, which is magnetic recording tape, the same type of tape that you would find in the old reel-to-reel tape recorders, and in some cases the cassette tape recorders. So there is a very good possibility we have in the past recorded EVPs on the audio track of video tapes that we did not hear at the time.
Yeah. All right, Dale, please stand by. Always great talking to you. Thanks for taking time out of your busy day to join us. And Dale Kaczmarek is our guest. His website is ghostresearch.org, and Dale and I will be back on the other side. And don't forget, he has a couple of books that are available on Amazon.com, as well as his website, which is, once again, ghostresearch.org. I'm Rob McConnell. This is the X Zone. Dale and I return on the other side of this break. Don't go away. And the current edition of the X Chronicles newspaper is hitting the newsstands and online, I believe, April the 7th, which is a week tomorrow. Exonation, our guest this hour, Dale Kaczmarek, ghostresearch.org. If there are ghost people, are there also ghost animals?
Yes. We have received many reports of ghost animals. In fact, there are quite a number of books in my library that people have wrote about simply just on the topic of animal ghosts. There are several here in the Chicagoland area, again, often associated with tragedy. There were some people and some horses that had died crossing the road from one riding trail to another. And people have seen to this day what looks like phantom horses and riders still trying to cross from one side to the other. They never make it across the street. Why? Because in life, they never made it across the street. So it's like a residual type thing. But people have often experienced things in their own homes. Cats and dogs that become family pets, they become part of the family because in some cases they live very, very long times, a number of years. But people have seen these experiences. Maybe they'll keep a memento from their cat or dog, and they'll see somebody see the ball roll across the ground like something's playing with it. They might hear a purring of a cat, maybe something rubbing against their legs like cats do. Sensation of something jumping into the bed with them. And it's comforting to know, at least in the way I look at it, the comforting to know that maybe you might be reunited with your pets on the other side because they have a surviving personality as well, and they're very intelligent animals. And I think their own experiences that people have had, and just what they have told me indicate that pets do survive after death, and they sometimes have very strong bonds with the living even after they die.
You're in Chicago, right?
Yes.
Have you ever gone down to where the St. Valentine Day Massacre was and investigated anything there?
I've been there. I know the story well. Unfortunately, the area where the St. Valentine's Day Massacre took place, the old SMC Cartage Company garage was torn down in the 1950s for urban renewal, as they say, in Chicago. But there is a little park-like area on the south side of a housing project for the elderly, which is kind of chained off right now. I mean, you can get access to the back through the alley, but you probably should get permission. And there are 5 trees, like the 5 spots of a playing card. And the center tree is almost exactly where the north wall would have stood, where those men were lined up and shot by obviously the Capone gang back on February 14th, 1929. And people to this day have heard the sound of machine gun fire, automatic weapons fire. Dogs that walk past often react strangely because dogs and cats, I believe, are perfect ghost hunters because they can sense things. And dogs can actually hear ultrasonic sounds like a dog whistle. They can track people by scent alone. They have an incredibly gifted sight and vision, almost infrared. And the interesting thing about the St. Valentine's Day Massacre, too, is that there was a dog involved with that, a dog named Highball, who was the pet of Bugs Moran's brother-in-law, who was gunned down. The funny part about it is he wasn't killed or anything, but when the police got word of what was going on, they didn't come because of the machine gun fire and the shotgun blast they heard coming from the garage. It was the insistent barking and whining of the dog that actually drew police there as a complaint for an animal complaint. And that's when they found all the men gunned down. So with that being said, that dog being an eyewitness and being very close to several men in the garage, maybe that's some of the reasons that other animals are attracted to that as well.
Has anybody ever thought of using a dog during a paranormal investigation because of their abilities?
Yes. In fact, I was at a conference about a decade ago or so, and there was a ghost hunting team that actually used I don't remember the breed of the dog, but his name was Buster. He was the ghost busting dog.
Gosh.
And he was trained in some way, and I don't know exactly. Dogs are very they're very intelligent. You can train them very easily. But how do you train a dog to pick up spirits? Unless, again, like I'm saying, they're hearing something we don't hear. They're seeing something we don't see. They smell something we don't smell, and so forth. And maybe that's where that ghost busting technology comes in with the animals. I've always told people that if you don't have you don't want to bring in a paranormal team, or you don't want to bring in a psychic or medium. If you know somebody who has a dog, bring a dog and let the dog go through the house. And if there's something going on, the dog or cat usually let you know.
In all the years you've been doing paranormal investigations, collecting evidence, and especially EVPs, have you ever caught a dog or another animal on an EVP that you relate to being a paranormal experience?
I've never photographed anything. I believe there was one time that we may have picked up something that sounded like a dog in the background that we did not hear at the time when we were recording. So it wasn't a disembodied bark, as you might call it. It was an EVP. It was something we did not hear at the time. And again, this was at a private residence. We were doing an investigation, and the family member that died in the home had a dog, and then the dog was very attached to the woman. So when the woman died, the dog, being very attached, was basically heartbroken and didn't live much longer afterwards. So when we went in to do an investigation to discover if this woman was still around, because people thought that they'd seen and heard things, we picked up what sounded like an animal in the background that sounded like a dog.
You and I have to take our final break. Please stand by. Dale Kaczmarek is our guest, ghostresearch.org. And if you'd like to get any of Dale's books, they're available on Amazon, as well as from his website at ghostresearch.org. This is the X-Zone. I'm Rob McConnell. Dale Kaczmarek and I return after this break as we wrap up this hour here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away, gang.
So I was watching the X-Zone TV channel last night when I was abducted by aliens, and they kept repeating to me over and over again, simultv.com, simultv.com.
What's simultv.com?
That's what I asked them. They had it written on the side of their UFO.
How do you spell that?
UFO.
No, I mean simultv.com.
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 Right. simultv.com.
Interesting that you were abducted by aliens in a simultv.com UFO last night.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Now that you mention it, I remember now last night I was awakened from a deep sleep. My great-grandmother was standing there. She said she'd come from the hereafter to tell me about simultv.com. She even spelled it out for me.
simultv.com, sonny boy.
simultv.com.
simultv.com, sonny boy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Guys, you'll never guess what my psychic guru just told me.
simultv.com.
Exactly. Are you guys psychic too?
Of course.
We all know about simultv.com. simultv.com.
Wow, what an hour this has been. First of all, Dale, I want to thank you ever so much for joining us. Always great pleasure talking to you, and continued success. And do the world a favor and keep on doing the great work you're doing. And hopefully one day we'll be able to gather that evidence to prove beyond a shadow of doubt that all your hard work, dedication, and that of your team has proven that once and for all, there are ghosts. Are we getting closer to that point, in your opinion?
I believe so, and the only reason I say that is when I first started back in the mid-1970s, there was no equipment per se that we have nowadays. I mean, I started off with a cassette tape recorder. I had my EMF device was a compass.
Yeah,
and,
wow.
There really wasn't much out there. So, I mean, I've seen how the technology has finally caught up. First being adapting certain things to paranormal research, and then now so many people out there building specific devices made only for this express purpose of trying to gather evidence for ghosts or the paranormal. And I think in that aspect, with those bright minds and the next generation of ghost researchers out there. I think there may be some major breakthrough somewhere in the horizon where people will be able to have something that will definitively prove the existence of ghosts. If you remember Thomas Edison himself, he was designing supposedly some sort of communication device. The plans were never found; it was never completed. But if anybody would have been able to build an invention, and he had so many inventions, he would have been the person to do that. So I really believe it's the technologies and the equipment that's going to make the breakthrough here. I think we're on a better path now than before because now we're able to perhaps hear the actual voices coming through on these real-time devices. Not all the time they make sense, but in many cases they do. We have so many examples of full sentences coming out on the direct responses to our questions. So it's not just random words coming through. So I think that's where the breakthrough will come.
Dale, do you think that the other side, ghost spirits, they want to make that connection, that they really try hard to connect with researchers like yourself because you believe you're dedicated? Do they know this? And is this why researchers like yourself get the results you get?
I think so. And the reason I say that is even going back, a generation before mine when they had Dr. Konstantin Radove, Professor Hans Bender, and Friedrich Jurgensen and other very early EVPers, George Meek, for example, another name that pops up, when they were communicating with scientist friends that had passed over, they indicated through some of their EVPs and some of their responses they were getting is that the other side was actually telling them how to make the device better, what frequency they needed to go, how to adjust it better. And these are some of the EVPs that you can actually find if you go on these internet programs and so forth. So I think they are trying to reach out to us in some cases to make that communication, to make that connection from the other side.
Dale, before we say so long, what are your final thoughts that you'd like to share with the X-Zone Nation tonight?
Well, again, as I always do, I mean, if anybody ever has an experience, it's just nothing to be frightened of or scared of. I've never come across anything harmful as far as a ghost or an entity, even poltergeist phenomena. There's never been anybody struck by a flying object, so it's nothing to be scared of. The best thing you can do is document your experiences. Reach out to a paranormal team if you have concerns and let them do the investigation. Don't take it upon yourself to do that. But there are a lot of good teams out there that can help you and assist you in your need to know.
Dale, as always, thank you so much for your time. Great talking to you. Give my very best to your family as well as your team, and I look forward to the next time we meet back here in the X-Zone.
It's always a pleasure.
You take care, my friend. And X-Zone Nation, if you'd like to contact Dale, visit his website, ghostresearch.org, and for his books and all the work that he does, it's a great website. Please, ghostresearch.org. I'll be back on the other side of the news at 6.5 minutes past the top of the hour as the X-Zone continues with yours truly right here on the Talkstar Radio Network, X-Zone Broadcast Network, Mutual Broadcast Network, and on Channel 32, the X-Zone TV channel, exclusive to Simul TV. I'm Rob McConnell. Don't go away.
From the Canada-US border in the southern region of Niagara, traveling north in Ontario's Golden Horseshoe, then east and west of the Greater Toronto Area, there is growing awareness and excitement as more and more people are starting their day with Beautiful Mind coffee, the delicious healthy coffee that your brain will love. Made with ethically sourced 100% Arabica coffee, Beautiful Mind coffee is roasted and ground in small batches to ensure each bag contains a wonderful full-bodied artisan coffee. Scientifically formulated, Beautiful Mind coffee is the only coffee blend that contains 3 herbal ingredients found to aid in boosting your daily mental clarity and focus. Maca root powder, green tea extract, and American ginseng have been selected for their ability to support good brain health. Taking care of your brain's health now can help delay or prevent the onset of cognitive dysfunction, including dementia, Alzheimer's, and more general memory loss as you get older, just by enjoying the delicious flavor of our roasted coffee and herbal ingredients found exclusively in Beautiful Mind Coffee. Beautiful Mind Coffee is now available at Amazon.ca and soon to be available in selected locations near you. In Hamilton, Ontario, Beautiful Mind Coffee is now available at Livelong Wellness Clinic, located at 189 Hewson Street South. Beautiful Mind Coffee can be ordered by telephone by calling 416-436-3675 or 905-536-2450. Why have a good cup of coffee when you can have a great cup of Beautiful Mind Coffee that's good for your brain? For more information on Beautiful Mind Coffee, visit us online at www.beautifulmindcoffee.ca.